Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I want to just quickly thank our Buildings and Grounds Department for getting this set up very quickly. Mike Handerhan and the group. Unfortunately, Mike, the General Handerhan, couldn't be with us today, but he is in our thoughts, and we send him all the best. So God bless the General. I do want to I'm going to introduce the town officials that are here. Say a few words, and then Bill Casey, President of the Board of Education, will introduce any school officials that are here as well, and Bill will say a few words. Be more than happy to stay for a while after to answer any questions you have. We'll also answer them from the podium here as well once we're done, because I'm sure you'll have some. So getting on to town officials, to my right, Town Board Member Linda Wallowit. Behind her, Dan Bull, Highway Superintendent. Town Board Member Jim Whalen, right here up front. Town Justice, Bob Ryback in the back. Amy Standard, Town Board Member. Dave Miller, who's been the co-chair and or chair, depending on what year, of the Clifton Park Open Space, Trails, and Riverfront Committee since 2000, when we began the committee and conducted our open space planning process from that point. So thank you, Dave. And John Shop. John is my colleague on the County Board of Supervisors. Clifton Park has 2 representatives on the Board of Supervisors. John and I fill those roles. Also to my left here, President of the Board of Education, Bill Casey. As I said, you'll be hearing from him as well, and you know, we've enjoyed working with Bill and his team over the last few months. But I think safe to say it would be an understatement to say that the land behind us here has been a topic of debate and discussion for quite some time now. The people of our communities have spoken loud and clear at a referendum earlier this year that involved the 34 plus acres behind us. As elected officials, we must always be keenly aware of the sentiments of the people we serve. Through the overwhelming results of the referendum vote for the future of this 34 plus acre parcel, assessing the sentiments of our community after the results of the referendum was not a difficult task. I mean, let's face it, the voter turnout was very high on an historical basis with lopsided results. It's been widely reported that the town and school representatives have been conducting meetings in an effort to explore options for the future of the 34 plus acres behind us deemed surplus by the Board of Education. We have continuously answered public inquiries on the status of the meetings, who was in attendance at the meetings, and our views on the level of progress. We have stated the topics under discussion, including price points at different times during the process. As a matter of fact, after the completion of the RFP process that the school completed, the town's submission to the RFP process was made public, including the price that we offered. So working together, the town and school have conducted the most open process relating to negotiations that I've ever experienced or witnessed from afar. And I think that's more than a fair statement. In recent weeks, Bill Casey, President of the BOE, and I have stated to the press significant progress towards an agreement. I think we've both been on the same page that as the weeks have gone by during our discussions of our joint committee, that we felt more confident each and every passing week that progress was being made towards a resolution. In the last week, this progress has led to a conceptual agreement, and we are here today to announce the details of that conceptual agreement. I have some of them here as follows. The town of Clifton Park has offered $1.1 million to the Shen School District for the 34 plus acres. I also want to point out, and we have some pictures up here. It might be difficult to see from back there, obviously, but you can take a look after we're done here I want to point your attention to the visual closest to me. It has an outline of the parcel as identified through the RFP process conducted by the school, and it also identifies a buffer area. Now the school smartly, during their RFP process, ensured that there was a 100-foot buffer between school property and the 34 acres that would that at that time was looked as though it was going to be developed commercially. So that was a very smart move. Now we have an incredible opportunity working together, because since this property will not be developed commercially if this agreement is consummated, there will be two public properties adjoining one another. That should lead to great opportunity in the future for collaboration between the town and the school. So that buffer is identified on that visual closest to me. Looking forward, as I talk about partnership and collaboration, the town of Clifton Park and Shenendehowa School District will establish a formal committee. The committee will meet regularly to discuss collaborative efforts between the two entities. And one topic for many years now, and for many years into the future, will be the discussion of partnerships and collaborations between the two entities on these adjoining parcels, if indeed the deal is consummated by the voters. The joint committee between the town and the Shenendehowa School District will be formalized through a memorandum of understanding at a later time. So, if the sale of the property is approved by the town board and the Shenendehowa Board of Education, and subsequently by the voters of the Shen School District, what will be the next steps? I think that's something that has been asked frequently of us and has been well publicized, but I think it's important to reiterate that point here. The town will immediately conduct a comprehensive public planning process. We'll follow the same template we have used with other long-range planning studies that have benefited the town of Clifton Park. We've completed those in recent years. Some examples are the Town Center Plan, the Western Clifton Park General Environmental Impact Statement, the Recreational Master Plan, and others. The town board has a very strong track record in recent years of conducting thorough, comprehensive planning processes that aren't just studies that are put up in the bookcase and never looked at again, but instead are living documents and are executed as time moves forward. This visioning process will include professional support, town staff, community stakeholders, community organizations, and most importantly, public meetings to secure the opinions and the ideas of the people that we serve. This template has served the community well in the past and will ensure a thorough, successful planning effort. Now, we will consider during this process short and long-term goals. And the town board is prepared to invest not only in this planning process, but in improvements to enhance the community's enjoyment of the 34-plus acres and also to ensure user safety of this parcel. As we have a tremendous amount of experience owning public parcels for active and passive recreation throughout the town, we continually ensure that all of those properties are maintained well, that they are safe for public use, and we make investments to enhance the community's enjoyment of those parcels. This 34-plus acres will be no different. In addition to that, it's fair to say that the town board has a very successful track record in securing grants for many, many different initiatives, and we will look to secure grants for this property from every step of the process. And I'm going to introduce one of our partners who's always been incredibly helpful to the town of Clifton Park, and that's Senator Tedisco in a moment. So I guess the next question is, in general, you know, we have this joint working committee between the school and the town, and this has also been publicized that you can't have a majority of school board members or town board members on this committee through these negotiations, and that has been the case. We have not had a majority of either. So do they support it? And I can say from the town's perspective, the town board has been and continues to be very supportive of these collaborative efforts, working with the school, and they're very supportive of this conceptual agreement that we have reached. The reasons for that are many, but just some of them are that securing the parcel will further our goal of expanding our recreational network. It will add to the 1,300 acres of property that we have permanently preserved since initiating our open space planning process in 2000, and will complement the 14 miles of new trails that we've built during that time as well. Balancing the significant commercial investment in town, and certainly you've seen plenty of that here at Exit 9, which assists us in maintaining a very low tax rate when compared to our peer group. So there's a balance, and one complements the other. Significant commercial tax base pays for programs and pays for additional amenities in the town, like our trail network and our growing recreational network. Securing this parcel will also further the vision of the town center plan. I see a lot of faces here of folks that participated in our town center plan. Throughout that 2-year planning process, we engaged the public and received an incredible amount of salient ideas and opinions. We will follow that same process when planning for this 34+ acres. And I'd further just like to say that from an operational standpoint, the town and the school are completely different. The town has no jurisdiction over the operations of the town, and vice versa. However, we have an incredible opportunity for a more engaged partnership and collaboration on issues and important opportunities, important to both entities, and also extremely important, and most importantly, to the people we serve, not only in Clifton Park, but greater southern Saratoga County. Clifton Park has been and will continue to be a leader, and in this effort, collaborating with the Shen School District, I think is just one more step and one more way that Clifton Park is leading. So with that, again, we'll take any questions, but after I introduce our partner in this endeavor, President of the Board of Education, Bill Casey, I'll also introduce our Senator, Jim Tedisco. But first, Mr. Casey.
Thank you, everyone. This is, in my mind, this is an historic day. There's been a lot of collaboration between both of these these governments over a period of time. We serve the same students. Less than 3 weeks ago, we opened with almost 10,000 students in our district. And that's our primary responsibility. That's what led to some of the discussion about this property. Is this advancing our goal or isn't it? On the backside of the property and areas that we could get to, we added 2 elementary schools over time. Thank God we did that. They're full. But as we move forward, we're looking about how we could best use this. We looked at the town center plan that was developed, and we came up with a proposal, an RFP proposal. We got some proposals. We went through them. We made a recommendation. It went to the voters who had the right to challenge that. They challenged it, and they were successful in that challenge. So the question isn't where we've been. The question is where we're going. From my perspective, I see that we're in a unique position here. This is, many people overuse words, win-win, and I would say those are important words in this. I'd say even more important is community partnership. This, as we've talked about this, as Phil has outlined, this committee that will work on how we best use these, our adjoining properties, and one of the things that we really stress is we will invite in community members, community organizations, booster groups, whatever, who use these areas, probably have some ideas, They might even have a few bucks that they can contribute to help in the development of these things. I do want to note the $1.1 million is the set price for this. I want to be clear that that buffer area that Phil pointed to uniquely is added to this deal. So it's 34 plus acres plus the buffer area. And he adequately described why that is not as important to us today as it was when we first went out with the RFP. The other piece that we've talked about, the school district has been consistent all along, is not only what's the price we get, but what's the value added. And we can look very selfishly at what's the value added to the district or what's the value added to the community. And as we worked our way through the working group process, we have, the town is committed to moving forward on providing some funds for not only this planning study, which will be a substantial effort, but also the first round of I would say the phase one. This is a wonderful property. People want to access it. They want to park someplace. They want to walk through it. They want clear trails. They want signage. They don't want to get lost in there. All those things will be something that I'm sure the consultant will come up with as a phase one process. This town typically goes through a series of phases whenever they do something. It's not jump in full bear. It's try to figure out what the best use is, what the community wants, and then move from there, and what we can afford. And that becomes an important issue. I think the stakeholder participation is going to be a key element for us, and it's something that helped us move this. Where do we go from here? So Phil mentioned a couple things. On September 26th is our next school board meeting. It's a study session. Any of you are familiar with that? It's a session where we look at a number of issues that are before the district, mostly on the education side. This will be on that agenda. We will talk about this proposed deal with our board members. We have not discussed this as a group with our board, other than some of the value issues which we did discuss with them to get some limits from them. So we will have that on the agenda that night. On October 2nd, there's a town board meeting. The town board meeting, I understand what will happen there on their agenda will be a resolution asking for the board's approval to authorize the supervisor to sign the contract offer to the district. And then in terms of the next step, on October 10th, at a regular business meeting of the school district, we will have on our agenda an item to approve the offer from the town. So that's why we're calling it conceptual. We both represent different groups, and we want the opportunity for there to be discussion in public. At our October 10th meeting, I'll just point out, many of you have spoken at those meetings. The first meeting of the month for us, there's a public comment at the beginning, and we certainly would entertain public comment that night on this issue or any other issue that's facing us. So that's where we are. All this is targeted toward another date, December 5th. December 5th, it is our anticipation that we will have a public referendum on the sale. That's required under the education law that we're using to make this sale, Section 405 of the education law. And required with that is a 45-day public notice. So if we start backing off those public notices and getting the details right, our board needs to act on October 10th, and I anticipate they will. I do want to say that this isn't a single effort that we work on. So from our working committee side, on the district side, our Vice President Todd Gilbert and our former President Bob Presley and I were representing the district, and our advisors included Superintendent Oliver Robinson and our Chief Financial Officer Kathy Wetmore Chase, who's probably back keeping track of things. And our newest board member is here today as well, Naomi Hoffman, who we've updated her on the process. She understands where we are and will be part of the process as we move forward. So with that being said, I think I covered everything you wanted.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to, we are so fortunate to have an incredible public servant for many years, and when he became our assemblyman several years ago, we were thrilled because we knew we would have a fighter in the assembly. He's now our senator, and he's just been there with us step by step with everything that the town of Clifton Park has tried to do over the years, and that is Jim Tedisco. Jim?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today with Supervisor Barrett and the town leaders and your school district leaders, President Casey, our school board members, Superintendent Robinson, to join them in welcoming you to the place where all good things emanate from, the 49th Senatorial District. And the microcosm, it's not that small, it's a great town, Clifton Park, which illustrates the quality of life that we have in this wonderful Senate District. You know, I went to and actually graduated from a wonderful college, Union College in Schenectady. And if you go on that campus, just a beautiful campus. That's what really sold me when I was a high school athlete and student and played a little ball over there. And academics, fantastic. I learned a lot in the classroom, great professors. But let me tell you the one lesson I learned that might be most important. It's illustrated here. I played on some great basketball teams over there. We still hold the record for the most wins to loss over there. What I learned from my coaches and those great players who played with me, every part of life is a team. And when the team works together, you can achieve unbelievable success. Most importantly, if the individuals on that team do not care who gets the credit, you can even achieve bigger successes, and everybody can take the credit. And I want to congratulate the school district leaders, Supervisor Barrett, and the leaders of the town for working together as a team to put this consensus together. When you think about a community, a municipality, what impacts the quality of life? You can see it right here. Great infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Bull, for that. Great shopping areas. Great school districts where kids learn and get great educations. And they win football games like they did just this past week. Taxes, not good. No taxes are good, but very, very reasonable and at a good rate for a municipality like this, which these leaders can take credit for. But you've also got to have that place where they can go on a day like this and inhale the fresh air and be a part of nature. And that's what this is going to accomplish. And I can't think of a better way to join forces than with the third part of that team. And that's the most important part of our representative democracy. The individuals, when this consensus is totally put together on December 5th, are going to come in and make a decision on what you've provided for them, and are going to be taking part in this wonderful facility, and are going to be part of that team who are going to decide exactly what's the best and the best interest for expanding that quality of life, providing that fresh air, providing that nature that they can be a part of. And all those other things are great that I talked about, but you've got to have those recreational activities. You've got to have that open space. And that's great forethought on both partners who are dealing with this. So I'm excited, and we're not having negotiations, but we are having very fruitful discussions, myself, Supervisor Barrett, and I do believe there will be an announcement coming down in the home stretch here of some potential assistance from the state of New York, which I may be a part of. And we are talking about grants and funding because over $1 million is a lot of money, and taxpayers of Clifton Park send a lot of money out to the state of New York, and some of their money should come back to their community to help out with outstanding ventures like this. So I do believe that in the future, maybe we can get together again and talk about something very positive that I can do and my colleagues in the New York State Legislature can do to help out. So congratulations to everybody, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. And again, we do thank the Senator. I think Bill did a great job talking about the timeline. I just want to point out one thing. You know, you hear us talk about adjoining parcels and future collaborative efforts and discussions on how the two parcels can complement each other. If you want to know, get a better idea of what I'm talking about, if you walk down Maxwell here to the end of the tree line, take a right and walk into that cleared spot that was cleared when Shattuckon School was built. Basically, the property lines, as proposed, will join somewhere close to that wood line, and so we'll have this beautiful passive recreational area here, and what we hope will be a more active recreational parcel just on the other side of that tree line. We have acres and acres of cleared property that's owned by the school, and that will certainly be part of the discussion. But at least that'll give you a visual of what we're talking about, okay? And I think at this point, if you want to, we'll take any questions.
Anyone have any questions, we'd be glad to take.
When you say passive and active recreation areas, give us an idea of some of the things that, I know we've got a long way to go, but some of the things that we might be able to see there if this all is completed as hoped.
Well, until we conduct the planning process that I've discussed and the visioning that will come to fruition through that public comprehensive planning process, it's difficult to say exactly what will happen. However, I can give you an example of active recreation, Clifton Common. Okay, that's active recreation. Passive recreation would be Garnsey Park, the Dwaskill Nature Preserve, the Northwood Nature Preserve, Kins Road Park. Those are just examples of some of the town's recreational network with regard to more passive recreational opportunities. So as you see it today, there's a rough trail network in there, certainly nothing formal, but a rough trail network. And so there would be opportunities for passive recreational use now, but as we go through the visioning process and continue our discussions with the school district on our partnership, we see bigger opportunities in the future. So what they'll be, not sure yet.
Depending on what is decided, could this land be cleared for some kind of active recreation?
Well, it's interesting because I think in the beginning of this process, when we were discussing, what options are out there for these two adjoining parcels, and the town board had suggested last year that perhaps building some nicer active recreational fields on that cleared parcel that the school owns would be great for the community, and I think they have some interest in that. But I think people got that confused with the town interested in securing this property and then clear cutting it and putting in sports fields on the 34 acres. That's not going to happen. That's the one thing I can tell you before we do the planning process. And we've made that very clear in other press accounts, but that will not happen. It would make no sense at all to clear cut this property for playing fields when there's plenty of open property right adjacent to it. Bill?
Yeah, and we've worked our way through a process where we've developed a draft contract, and the contract, as it relates to this section of the law that we're using, it has to be used for public purpose. I suppose clear cutting could fit that bill, but we have specified in the contract that this transfer will be for parkland use, and that's what I think the community is looking for. I know from the folks that we heard from last spring, the Friends of Open Space Clifton Park, they weren't looking for open space to clear those trees. They were looking for these trees to be here and this resource to stay in this community. So we're confident that we have an agreement that we both will honor that relates to the use of this property.
Yeah, and along with the public, the property is for public use. So you do have passive recreational, you have active recreational, hopefully at a more engaged aspect in the property owned by the school, but you also need amenities and other public spaces to complement a public area. Bill mentioned earlier parking, for instance, other facilities. This parcel stretches all the way to Moe Road, and along the way it's very close, doesn't quite connect to Collins Park if you're familiar with Collins Park on Moe Road, but it is very close. And we'd like to explore a possible connection there as well. So we have some larger ideas that need to be thoroughly reviewed and assessed through our visioning process, and ultimately would need to be approved by the town board.
Phil, you've talked about involving different interests within the community.
Right.
YMCA's right over there.
Yeah.
How can they be involved? You anticipate working with them? What can their role be in this process?
As a matter of fact, today, Dr. Robinson and I were at a ribbon cutting on a beautiful new trail that starts at the YMCA, circles around, and connects to a town trail that we constructed several years ago over behind the library and the Orangen School, just over here. So that's a wonderful project by the YMCA and an Eagle Scout, Brendan Barrow, that will add to the recreational use of the area. The YMCA is one entity and one stakeholder. I think it's important, if you look at the visual that's furthest from me, we point out all of the different entities that are right here at Exit 9, and how as investment, both public and private, has continued to be very strong in this area. Not only have we grown the tax base, but we've increased healthcare services for our residents. We've increased entities for knowledge, like the library, and recreation, like the YMCA. That we have everything right here at Exit 9, and that's what we don't have is a park. What we don't have is extensive green space. And if we're able to secure this property through a vote by the voters, a positive vote by the voters, we'll have that. And that was something that was identified in the town center plan as being very important. And again, that town center plan had the professional consultants, the community stakeholders, the community organizations. I bet if you ask the YMCA what they'd like to see around here, they'd probably like to see a beautiful park area. And I'll go out on a limb and say that any entity at Exit 9 would say the same, whether it's a private business, a school, a YMCA, or a library.
On the side of the school board, I know a topic that's been brought up a few times now is the possibility of either purchasing land in Half Moon for a new elementary school. Is that something that the 1.1 million might possibly go towards?
It could. Yeah, it's early yet in the process. We've got to get these process through the contract. Get Phil mentioned a couple times related to this issue of transparency. There's the ultimate transparency on this transaction. On December 5th, people go in the polls and they vote yes or no. And at that time, then we'll have a sense. We have a futures commission at our school, a futures committee. We talked about bringing that back and looking at what our growing needs are. You look around at a lot of districts in the capital district and they're struggling with enrollment because enrollment's sliding. Enrollment's not sliding here. We opened virtually with the same numbers this year that we opened with last year. In November, we'll be getting a projection from the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. We hire them every year to look at our projections going out, especially in the next 5 years. And I think our sense would be this resource, and how this was, maybe it relates to that, Cassie, is this was declared surplus because we didn't see that this would meet our future needs for facilities. We have added, we put 2 facilities on here. We actually sold a piece in the early days to the town, which was used for the town court building. It was a wetland along there, and it was easy to do, 4.5 acres. But we've got to figure out where the district growth is going to be. And one of the issues that you've heard us talk about is Half Moon's got a tremendous amount of growth on the residential side. So what's happening is the demand is up, and it also means the cost of the property is up. So from our perspective, I'm sure a consideration will be how do we invest in our future, even if today we don't have a need for an elementary school or another school on campus. Where do we go with that? That's certainly on our plate, but it's not on our plate today.
Yes, Dave, how are you?
Good, thanks. Do you have any ideas on how to use the property as an outdoor classroom for Shen students?
Yeah, that's something that we've discussed, and that one opportunity of many that will be part of the discussions with our joint committee. It's very close to not only Shattuckon and Oranjan, but the main Shen campus. So yeah, it'll be a public space, and therefore free for the public to use. That includes the school district, so we would welcome them with open arms. Right?
Yeah, and we've talked about this, the public planning process that the town typically follows, and as Phil's outlined on this, as you did with the town center plan, we were invited in, we had input. I suspect the people from the school, we may hear from the science department that says, we'd like to see, a forest lab next to us. And I don't know what that is, but the forest is here,
Sounds
and they
good.
can define the lab, and then we'll talk to our friend about how you finance some of those kinds of things. But certainly that's not off the table. I expect that as we talk about the uses of these adjoining properties, that we'll be talking about both our needs.
Any other questions? All right, well, we'll be milling about, oh, yes, oh, I'm sorry, did I miss you the first time?
No, you did not.
Because if I did, please slap my hand.
People are going to ask why this took so long. The vote was in April.
Time is a number, and something just fell behind me in the forest.
You're okay.
That was a limb.
Vote was in April, and at the very first meeting, you referenced the amount from the original RFP, which is $1 million. The figure has moved very, very little. So people will say, what took them so long? Now you're up against it. You got a timeline. The board has 2 meetings before they have to vote in order to get it on a December 5th referendum. Otherwise, you're into either the middle of the winter in 2018 or
Right.
May. So can you explain, even briefly,
I don't know about briefly.
what took so long?
Let me explain.
Go.
We like each other. We like getting together. People are on both sides have a lot of other responsibilities, and we've tried to space these meetings out. Go back, talk to the lawyers. I said to somebody the other day, they asked how we're doing. I said the good news is the lawyers are involved. The bad news is the lawyers are involved. But we've been able to work. It's a wordsmithing job going through this, and this is not your mother's deal that we're looking at here. When we started, we were talking about 34 plus acres. We've added on that. We wanted to work through the value added piece. That was a push and pull back and forth. We're trying to get what are the right words that we can say on that. Phil raised the issue of the buffer. Looking at it, that wasn't in our consideration. It seemed reasonable to think that through. Change our thinking. We're actually going to have to take a vote prior to voting on the actual sale. We're going to have to declare that small buffer surplus as well, so that when we make the vote right after that, hopefully, it will approve the entire deal, that it needs to be part of that package. So there've been, it looks simple from the outside. It has not been, we've both been available. People have asked us how we're doing. I think we both continue to say we have optimism, but we have things to work through. And we didn't want to rush it. The December 5th date is a deadline that we put on it because we don't want to have a special election later in January, February, or March. I think people can rightly say, what are you doing? Why don't you just wait till May? We don't want to wait till May. We want to get this planning process. They've committed to doing that. And so we can do this in this time frame from here on our side, and I think you're more than committed to doing it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is not an insignificant amount of money. We did not take this type of transaction lightly. And if you follow our finances, which I know you do, Glenn, you would understand that. One criticism at times, which has always kind of blown my mind, but one criticism at times over the years is, yes, the town of Clifton Park has very low taxes, but the town of Clifton Park has saved too much money. We have too much in reserves. One, I'm proud of that. So very proud to be in that position, a very envious position that I'm sure many other municipalities throughout the state and country would trade with us. But it also puts Clifton Park in a unique opportunity to take advantage of every opportunity that comes before us, and also prepares us for any eventuality that we may incur. So we're in a position to seriously consider transactions like this to benefit the community based on referendum results that were overwhelming just earlier this year, as you mentioned. And that was, April when that occurred. It's September. I don't think that's a long time at all. Now, just don't put in that quote. He'll just put in that quote. He won't put in any of the context. So make sure you have the context, Glenn or Stan or whoever's editing this.
I got the video.
Yeah, right. So you know, I don't think that's a long time for something of this magnitude. This is not a small transaction. And you know, the school Board of Education has put a tremendous amount of time and effort in this process from the very beginning to this point. And I'm just very pleased that we're working together. We're the two largest entities in southern Saratoga County and beyond. We should work together. I think this is a great step in us having a more engaged relationship and partnership, and we should be very proud of that.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I would want to say in response to Phil's talking about the town and the pluses here. What makes this community really work is that we have governments that are low taxing, and we have great schools. And I'm a guy who looks at the Sunday real estate ads every week. And if you watch those, you see in Half Moon, you see in other places, there's always a line, Shen schools. So people are looking for what we have here,
right.
And we're glad about that. It puts pressure on us, but we have just wonderful schools, and we've made great strides. We're always setting new goals moving forward, and one of our goals was to deal with this property, Glenn, before the end of the year, and that's what we'll be doing.
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. You got a follow-up?
Nope.
Maybe later.
Thank you all.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.